Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital. I hope you're all doing great, and welcome to your middle of the day market update. And welcome to the channel if you're new as well. If you're new to the channel and to these videos, basically what I try to do every single day is do a bit of an update on the entire market, right? So we'll talk about some fundamentals, some news that you might have missed over the course of today. We'll talk about Bitcoin, we'll talk about XRP, Ethereum, and then some altcoins. Usually what I do is I pick out a couple of altcoins that I think are interesting and that can rally, or at least that look like, you know, that they have some solid bullish structures. Maybe I tend to focus on long positioning, right? So when there's a very obvious short, I'll tell you about it as well, but that's what we do in these videos. But let's get right into it. So fundamentally, I just saw some news coming in about some lawsuits coming for strategy, aka MicroStrategy. I don't think that's very relevant, and I don't think the market is finding that much relevant right now either. So I'm not going to be talking about that. But today we did have some news. And first of all, the general financial markets are doing great, right? If you take a look at the S&P 500, it has reached new all-time highs, which is great news for our stock portfolios. And you can also see volatility index is low. Gold is falling off a cliff, which is suggesting general stability or lack of unrest, which is great. And then if we take a look at some crypto specific indices, like I would say, you know, altcoins leave something to be desired if you take a look at their charts, right? So if you take a look at the total market caps of altcoins, I don't think that looks great, but ultimately, Bitcoin on the higher time frames does look great, and we also still have a pretty major Coinbase Bitcoin premium. Now, I do have to say that, you know, Friday is usually a bit of a day of de-risking. So I also at this point of time have a slight bearish bias for Bitcoin, but we'll get to that later. Which is also further strengthened by news we got today. Today we got PCE price index and core PCE price index data, which is basically inflation rate data. And we got a couple of readings, both new data but also previous data being revised. It was higher than expected, right? So that's, even though earlier this week we had a little bit of hope that we would get a rate cut in July, that has decreased, right? And that certainly hasn't helped. But does that matter that much? No. But the thing is, and this is what I said this morning about Bitcoin, ultimately we're waiting for a breakout, right? And you can see it very clearly right here. Our main support level is right here around 106,500, 106,400. Our main resistance level is at 108,000, and we're just waiting for a breakout out of these two levels. For either a move into 110, 109.7, or for a move down lower into some of the imbalances we left over the course of the earlier this week right here between, you know, under 105 towards 103,000. And that's basically what we're waiting for. And that's very relevant for basically all altcoins. I mean, you can see most altcoins right now, with some exceptions, are just very correlated to Bitcoin. So that's what we're waiting for. Now, because of Friday de-risking and because I think, you know, on the 1 hour time frame, and if you take a look at some of the selling volume we've had, because of that, I have a slight bearish bias. So I expect a drop down into 105.4. 105.4 is the first level where I want to see a reaction. I expect a reaction. If it's a good reaction, so if we do something like this, then great, and we can rally up higher into 110. If it's a weak reaction, so something like this, then it's most likely we're going to drop down lower into 104, 103. So those are my thoughts for Bitcoin, and therefore also for most altcoins, even though most altcoins will probably underperform Bitcoin a little bit with this Bitcoin dominance. And when we take a look at other coins, I mean, Ethereum over the course of today has been relatively quiet. I expect something similar. I think Ethereum is more likely to get a bit of a pullback into this imbalance right here, rather than to get a breakout. But, you know, as a trader, if we do break out, I'll buy as well, right? So I think it's most likely we're going to drop down. But I think one of the best features that you can actually have as a trader, or one of the best skills, is just to be ready for both scenarios. And XRP I actually think looks a little bit better. A lot of shorts came in over the course of the last 36 hours, also a little bit because of news. I think that news isn't enough to drop down below key support levels. So drop down a little bit lower, especially into this level right here at 2.06, 2.04 is a possibility, but I do expect this to bounce fairly quickly here in terms of you know, in the next couple of days at least. Now, talking about altcoins, there's not a whole lot that I'm very interested in. I still think Aptos is very interesting. The volume that it has shown is very remarkable and great. However, would I buy it right now? No. The main area I would look at for a potential entry would be between 4.65 and 4.4, potentially even with some orders here at 4.2. So that looks interesting. Say, you know, same thing, also not that interesting anymore. So there's actually not that much at this point of time that I would say, you know, that's great. DeFi such as Aave and Uniswap is holding fine, but they're ranging, they're in some sort of a medium time frame accumulation instead of there being some sort of a probability that it's going to rally. So yeah, pretty boring Friday. It's probably going to be a pretty boring weekend, but I will keep you updated on that. All right, so that's what I think you need to know for now. But for now, thank you for watching. Have a great weekend in advance, and bye.